holy. We are holy, holy, holy. We are holy, holy, holy. We are holy.
This is something different for us, something new for us. And yeah, it's good to see your faces though. Um, you just never know what the weather's going to bring here in Colorado, do we? So we'll just kind of let people join, give people a couple of minutes to join. As they're doing that, I mean, if you want to unmute and say hello, then do that while we're gathering together. Seemed like a good day to stay in bed, didn't it? Yeah. Jay,
I was tempted to just keep my robe on, my cozy robe, but I figure I better not. I might be disrupted.
right, yeah.
Oh, Shirley, you and I would have had our robes on. We could have compared.
I tell you that robe is such
Yeah.
a delight. It's like a pampering. I said to myself, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah. Have to be presentable if we're going to be seen, right? Yeah. And I don't know what announcements we have this morning. Dr. Vern, do you want to say anything about your upcoming class while we are gathering? And you're still muted? Yeah, there you go. No?
Unmute,
There
unmute.
you go.
Okay, well, I just want to thank everyone. Our class on Wednesday is now full, so it is closed for enrollment. If anyone was planning on it, I'm sorry, and I'm just delighted that we have a full class. So thank you all. And that's my announcement.
Great. Thank you. Glad. That's exciting that your class is full already. That's going to be fun. The only other thing I can think of is that coming up in 3 weeks, I guess, on the 19th is our Thanksgiving celebration, right? Our potluck, our third Sunday potluck in celebration of Thanksgiving. And so put that on your calendar, please, if it isn't already on your calendar, as we move into that season of gratitude, Thanksgiving, and then Christmas is right around the corner. So it's hard to believe. Yeah. So, Jeanette, did you have any announcements that you wanted to share?
Uh, Not that I can think of, no.
But,
Other than actually the women's high tea that we are having the very first Saturday in in December, and it'll be at English Tea Leaves from 11:30 to 1:30. And watch your emails for some more information, and the web and the our webpage for some more information.
very nice. It sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Great. So I don't know of anything else that we need to talk about. I would say that since we are doing this a little bit differently today, or very differently today, that, after we finish, the talk and those kinds of things, and maybe if you want to stick around, have some conversation, have our own little gathering time, maybe grab some coffee or whatever, and we can chat or maybe talk about anything you want to talk about or anything that came up for you. So it may be a good opportunity for us to have a little time of going deeper with what we talked about today. I kind of like to do some of that going forward anyway, if we have time and the opportunity to do it after services coming up. So something I've wanted to do, but something I just haven't really made happen. So I think it's a good opportunity to practice that a little bit today, if you'd like to just stick around after finish things up, um, and just let that be. So obviously we won't have any instrumental music today. I may sing, we'll see, but we don't have any musicians with us today. Robert Anderson was going to be our musician today, our guest musician, and he lives out east somewhere, and it was a couple of hours drive for him to get in today. So he had already told me yesterday he thought he would not be making it. So, it all works out perfectly, right? And I think our own Laura is in Boulder today at the Columbine Unity today. She was going to be off anyway. So as we begin, let's just take a moment, settle in where we are, really be present, bring ourselves fully aware in this now moment as we come together in this virtual space, knowing that in consciousness there is no space, there is no time, that we are together. As we set that clear intention, we open ourselves up to the awareness of spirit that is living itself in us, through us, as us in this very moment. And we know that in that spirit, in that consciousness, we are one, we are together in unity. And we celebrate that knowing. And for all of those who are unable to be with us right now, we know that they are here too. And we gather them together in this consciousness of light and love. And we celebrate this opportunity that we have to come together in this way. So we allow ourselves to be present, to be open, to be receptive to whatever is moving in us and through us and as us today. And so we open ourselves up, we are grateful, and we allow it to be. And so it is. So Pam, would you like to unmute and share the reading with us this morning?
I would love to. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, the reading is from this month's Science of Mind. Petra Weldes, the article. Finally, we come to the realization that almost everything resolves itself into a both/and. Spiritually, personally, politically, socially, you name it. There's something on both sides that if we can make our vision large enough, allow a new way, a third way to emerge, a way that is much bigger, fuller, and richer, because it takes the best of both and sees how they can complement, correct, and empower each other. I wonder if a paradox is simply the realization that duality is a complementary pair of opposites that create a wholeness. I invite you to ponder, play with, and contemplate this paradox.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so we are sort of finishing up our month of paradox and polarities as we end October. So yeah, I think I will share a song with you. It's a song that Michael Gott wrote. It's one of my favorites of his, and it's called "Nearer Than the Air." It just came to me this morning to share that with you. So we'll see how the sound is. I don't know how the sound will be over this microphone, but I invite you just to relax and take this in as your own affirmation and prayer. It's like the air around me. It's like the sunlight on my face. I feel the love of God surround me. I am touched by amazing grace. And all I ever wanted, all I ever needed is already there. Closer than the sunlight and nearer than the air. I'm breathing and I am filled with the Spirit. It is health to my body, peace to my mind. It is joy, joy to my soul. And I breathe out my simple prayer of thank you. And my breath becomes a song that is singing all along, that is singing everywhere. It is nearer than the air. I breathe in, and I am filled with the Spirit. Oh, it is health to my body, peace to my mind. It is joy. It is joy, joy to my soul. And I breathe out my simple prayer of thank you. And my breath becomes a song that is singing all along, that is singing everywhere. It is nearer than the air. It's like the air around me. It's like the sunlight on my face. I feel the love of God surround me, and I am touched by amazing grace. All I ever wanted, and all I ever needed is already there. Closer than the sunlight, and nearer than the air. And so take a breath, allowing yourself to center into that awareness that it is like the air all around you, the love of God, the peace. All that is here now present. As we breathe in, we allow ourselves to fill ourselves with that awareness of that divine presence that is living itself in this moment, in its fullness. We know that that spirit is the health, the vitality, the joy, all the good that we can possibly conceive. And we are each expressions of that life. So as we breathe into that, we fill ourselves up and we exhale that prayer of thank you, gratitude, appreciation for all that we are willing and able to embrace and embody right here in this now moment. We are refreshed and renewed and restored in and as the awareness, the consciousness, the love of divine. So we open ourselves up in just a moment or two of silence to be with that, to allow even a deeper revelation of that truth in the silence. And once again, I invite you to breathe deeply into this now moment, opening yourself up more fully and completely to allow that life to have its life in and through and as you. As you claim it, as you choose in each moment to be it, it does become a lived reality. And we are grateful. And so it got off center there. All right, so change happens. we are living it right now, right? With this change of season, it's kind of amazing of those of you who might be watching this later or might not be here on the Front Range, we are having a very kind of early heavy snow. And so we have decided not to meet in person today, and we are meeting this way on Zoom. And we are recording this, so it will be posted later for those of you who might not be joining us right now. But that's the reason we're doing it a little differently today. And it's a good example of this time of year for us, for all of us, that this time of year is representative of shifting from season to season, and there are many different celebrations that honor that in this time of year. And so it's a good reminder for us to be present for that, to be aware of all of the seasons and the changes that take place in our lives all the time. You know, as they say, it's one thing that's constant is change. That's a paradox in itself, I guess, isn't it? The only thing that is constant is change, right? So as we are in this time of year, it's interesting to note that we were going to be celebrating Halloween today with our children, and I know that there's some disappointment about not being able to do that today. And I don't know if she's here, but certainly Lainey, we're going to celebrate her birthday. Lainey has birthday today, and we're disappointed that we weren't able to do that. So maybe we can just do that next week, Shirley. How about we just celebrate again next week? That would be, hey, I love your backdrop there. I've never seen that before. That's kind of cool. You have to show me how you do that. But yeah, we are looking at Halloween, and if we look at the different celebrations that occur during this time of year and different traditions, you know, there is Halloween that we celebrate, and there's, you know, All Saints Day, which All Hallows Eve is really the day before the acknowledgement of the day before All Saints Day in the Christian church, which is actually, you know, the celebration of all that is hallow, the holy. Hallow means holy and sacred. And so All Saints Day is about celebrating the saints and celebrating those who have gone before. You know, the day after that in Mexico and some other Spanish speaking traditions, I'm not a Spanish speaker, so it's El Dia de los Muertos, I think is how you say it, but it's the Day of the Dead translated into English, and that's also a celebration that goes on this time of year. I think it's November 2nd that is celebrated. So there's lots of different things that go on around this time of year. So I thought I would share a little bit about that and how we can maybe look at those, maybe through the lens of paradox and polarities, but also through the lens of metaphysics. How do we look at these celebrations and observe them in a way that's really meaningful for us as metaphysicians and people who really choose to honor those celebrations? And so I was reading about that, doing a little bit of my own study around that. And Halloween, this celebration of the ancient Celts was about called Samhain, which was really about it was a celebration of the last harvest of the season. And that's some of the tradition where Halloween has come from, but it was a celebration of the harvest. And also the Romans had their celebration of the Day of Pomona. Pomona was the goddess of the harvest, often pictured seated with a cornucopia full of vegetables and fruits and the harvest of the time. And so it's an opportunity to really look at that and the harvest, what we harvest. And what we understand in our teaching is that what we harvest in our lives is a result of our consciousness. And so can we, even during this time when the last harvest or the harvest of celebration, the celebrations of harvest are going on, or the traditions of that, really look at our own lives and what are we harvesting? We can look around and we can see the material things, but also the experiences that we have, the relationships that we have, the things that we are experiencing in our lives, and know that our harvest is a result of our consciousness. And sometimes that's really something that we want to celebrate, right? When it's something that we appreciate, something that's manifested that we were hoping would manifest or we desired to manifest, and or maybe even better than we had imagined it manifesting, right? So we celebrate that and we honor that. But what about the things that may be showing up in our lives that we may judge as not so desirable, right? The things that may be coming into our experience in a way that might not be exactly what we had hoped for or pictured. You know, some of us have those things going on, right? And I think it's important, as I am trying to learn for myself as well, to celebrate those things as well, to celebrate whatever the harvest brings. And I don't mean that we have to be content with the things that we're harvesting, or the things that are showing up in our lives that we might want to be a little different. But what I mean by that is, especially with what we know to be true, that we are harvesting the seeds that we have planted in consciousness. So even if we look at the things in our lives that aren't necessarily everything that we would want, can we even just celebrate that the law is working, that the law is working perfectly, and that even though it may not be exactly what we want it to be, we have the opportunity to choose to plant different seeds in the soil of consciousness. Because we also get to look at not only the harvest time, but also the seed time, the planting time. And that even though, like in farming or in these traditions of celebrating the last harvest of the season, it kind of occurs at a specific time of year, right? And so they have to wait until spring to plant something new. But the great news is that we don't. We don't have to wait until spring or a different season, a season of the earth, to plant something new. We can plant something new anytime we want to. And so it's important for us to remember to celebrate it all. I know it's challenging. Believe me, I know it can be challenging to truly find a place to honor and celebrate the harvest, no matter what it is. But when we can look at it from a higher perspective and observe it and see, wow, look how the law is working so perfectly in my life. Look how the law is working so perfectly in everything that happens. And look how I have the power in my own life to change what I have, what is in my consciousness, to choose different seeds, to go back and prepare the soil so that I can plant different seeds and nurture those seeds with my time and my attention and my affirmations and my mind treatment and all of the spiritual practices that we engage in order to nurture the seed that we want to harvest. So I think it can be a time of year for us. Any time of year can be this time of year. But when we're in this point, in this time where we are observing these traditional end of harvest or the celebration of the harvest, I would invite us to take a moment or two, some time to stop, maybe write down some of the things that we're observing in our lives that we are harvesting, whether they are the things that we really desire, or maybe there are things that, oh, it's showing up in my life, but not exactly what I want to experience right now. So what do I do about that? How do I change that? And then we go back and we honor that seed time and the preparation time so that we can clear away anything in our own consciousness that might be, I think in one of our readings for our class, Dr. Holmes talked about it as the second harvest, the things that show up in our lives that are kind of in our subconscious that then begin to manifest. And so it's interesting to go back and look. Say, oh, what is this stuff that's in there that continues to blossom forth in my life, even though it's not really what I want? And so we can go back and then make different choices, clear away some of that stuff that might be expressing or manifesting in our lives. So again, just an opportunity, an encouragement to look at that and to make different choices about that. It's also the time of the year when we honor that in the Christian tradition and the more traditional, maybe even Orthodox Christianity, as the All Saints Day, the day when we honor those saints, maybe the saints that are named and even the saints that are unnamed. And some people think that is celebrate that as God's harvest, which is kind of interesting, isn't it? God's harvest of the saints, bringing them into heaven, bringing them into that consciousness. And so that's kind of an interesting way of how these traditions overlap. That because of this tradition of the harvest and the tradition of Samhain and those more pagan traditions, the church had to do something, right, to introduce something that would be in alignment with Christianity. So this All Saints Day is a day to celebrate that, and really that's Halloween is the as All Hallows Eve became shortened as Halloween. But All Saints Day is on November 1st, which is coming up soon. And as I thought about that, I saw this story about a little girl who went to church with her grandmother one day to pray during the week in the Catholic Church. And her grandmother was kneeling and praying, and the little girl was looking around at all the stained glass windows. And after her grandmother got finished praying, she said, "Who are all these people in the windows?" And her grandmother said, "Well, those are the saints. They're the ones that to watch over us." And she said, "Okay." So the next Sunday, she was in Sunday school, and the teacher said, "Who can tell me what a saint is?" And the little girl raised her hand, "I can, I can." And she said, "Okay, tell me what a saint is." And she said, "A saint is a person who the light shines through." And so I thought, what a great way to look at that. A saint is a person who the light shines through. And in that respect, aren't we all saints? Don't we all have that ability, that potential to allow that light to shine through us? That we become so translucent with spirit as we just allow that light of love and joy and peace and harmony and all of the ideas that we associate with spirit to shine through us as we speak, as we be, as we work, as we commune with our family and friends, to really be those people that the light shines through. But again, we have these polarities, right? When we think about saints, we also think about sinners, or maybe we don't. But that came to mind for me this week too. It's like the saint and the sinner. So I think too that we have to acknowledge, well, we don't have to, but we get to think about that. And I get to acknowledge that while I strive to be the saint, strive to be the one who lets the light shine through all the time, that I don't always do that. I don't always succeed at doing that. And so not only am I a saint at times, but I'm also a sinner. Now, don't change the channel. Don't hang up yet when I use the word sinner, because I don't mean in the way that I grew up thinking about that, that we were born into sin, that we are unworthy of salvation, that we only get it because of the grace of God. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about more about this idea that a sin, as you probably have heard, was an archery term that just simply means to miss the mark. Or in more metaphysical terms, too, it can just be any thought or belief that is not in alignment with truth. So when we think about a sin, I'm not thinking about necessarily an action. I'm thinking about a belief or an idea or something that begins with the single thought of separation. Somehow I'm separate from God. Somehow I'm separate from my source. And somehow, if I'm separate from my source, I get into some fear. And when I'm in fear, I tend to say things or think things or act in ways that are in alignment with fear, not in alignment with love. And so I think it's important for us to recognize that, to honor that for ourselves, not celebrate it necessarily, but just to be aware of it, to bring our conscious awareness to that. Because in every moment, again, when I talked about the harvest, we get to choose what seeds we're planting in the fertile soil of law that become manifest. We are really at a point always of choosing whether we are going to be focused on these thoughts of separation, the feelings of separation, or if we are going to choose to align our thoughts, to be in vibrational harmony with Source, with our good, with love and peace and joy in all that we do and say and think and be. And so our opportunity again is to look at that, to recognize, yes, I am both. It is a both and. I am that at times, and that's not what I would want to choose. I want to be that vibration of peace and love and joy. I want to be the one that the light shines through. Because I believe, and I know that you believe it as well, is that when we allow ourselves to be the vessels through which that pure light shines through, that we not only experience it for ourselves, but we also share that with others, with the world. That we are the ones, as we talked about a little bit last week, I think Laura was the one who said it, was that there is no limit to what we as light workers or light bearers or beings of the light, there's no limit to what we can do. There's no limit to how we can influence the world. And I believe that. I believe that we make a huge difference. And so it's not about beating ourselves down. It's not about in any way shaming ourselves or guilting ourselves when we have thoughts that are out of alignment. It's just a matter of being aware that I'm sort of in that place of being a sinner. I don't even like using the terminology, but you know what I'm saying. It's that the sort of the polarity of that, and our opportunity is to be aware of it, to find that way of bringing ourselves back into alignment with our true nature, which I believe we are saints. We are the ones who are choosing to do that. But we put on these costumes, right? We put on these human costumes, so to speak, and we are sort of being that sometimes. And sometimes those human costumes can separate us from each other, right? From our truth, if we allow them to. So just a good reminder, I think, for me, and hopefully for you, to again recognize it, but not beat yourself up about it. Just give yourself love and compassion and kindness when you find yourself maybe a little bit of thoughts of judgment or separation or criticism of self or others, and to remember that you're here to let the light shine through. And so it also is the time of year when mostly in Mexico I hear, but in other Spanish speaking countries as well, they celebrate the Day of the Dead. And that's an interesting thing that we can look at too. It's not about celebrating death at all. It's really about celebrating life. It's really about celebrating the life of those who are now on the other side, those who are no longer embodying these human forms, and celebrating that and building altars to them, ofrendas to them in their homes, so that they become, it's a time just to become more aware of how connected we are, and that life does not end with the death of the body. And so it's a good opportunity for us too, if we are willing and ready to do that. That there are people in our lives who were in our lives in physical form who are no longer in our lives in physical. And so can we honor that? We honor them during this time as well. We may want to build an ofrenda. We may want to build our own altar with their pictures or flowers or some candles or something that we honor them. And it's a beautiful tradition to not necessarily be in mourning. It's not about that, but it's about, wow, this person made a difference in my life. This person made a difference in other people's lives, and I can bring that awareness to mine now. So it may be a time for you to do that as we began to enter this change of season. So again, a different way of honoring and celebrating this time of year. And then we have Halloween, of course. You know, the Celts believed that this was the time of year when the veil was the thinnest, the veil between the spirit world and the human world. And they would put on costumes during this time of year to confuse the spirits who would come into the human world, you know, and so they wouldn't harm them in some way. So they would dress up, you know, as ghosts and goblins and goons in order to kind of fit in with the spirit world. And so it's kind of an interesting tradition that we have taken on, and we dress up in our own costumes, right? And to hopefully not confuse the evil spirits of the spirit world, but really to be aware of that, you know, that yeah, that was the belief that there was this veil that separates the spirit world and the human world, the spirit world, and the world of manifestation, or the world of form. And that during this time of year, the spirits could come into the world of form and take people back, or whatever their belief was about that. And so we do continue that tradition sometimes. And again, I want to just say that I think sometimes we look at our human suits, our human costumes, as a way to separate us in a way from the spirit world, from the truth of us. You know, I like this idea that it says in Scripture that you are in the world, but you're not of the world. You're in the world, but you're not of the world. And I think that in and of itself is sort of a polarity that we can play with. But I think what I believe about that is, yes, we are in the world, and in some ways we are of the world, but we're of the world only to the level that we allow ourselves to be of the world. That the world does influence us. Our parents influence us. Our culture influences us. Our religions influence us. Everything that we experience in this human realm has some influence on us and how we operate and how we define ourselves in some way. Again, we have this opportunity, as Reverend Petra Weldis talked about in the reading that Pam shared, that we define ourselves very often by these labels that we assign to ourselves: Christian, Jew, Muslim, Democrat, Republican, American, Russian, male, female, all of these things that we identify ourselves as in this human realm. And as Paul says in Scripture, I don't remember exactly where, it's just coming to mind in the moment, I didn't look it up, but he talks about in Christ, in truth, in spirit, there is no East and West, there is no male or female, there is no Republican or Democrat, there is no any separation, that we're all the same in that spirit and in the spirit world. And so I think our opportunity is to remember that the veil that separates that spirit and the human only really exists in our own minds. The veil that separates us from the awareness of our true nature, of ourselves as spirit, and of ourselves as one with each other and with all creation, only exists in our mind, and it is as thin as we want it to be in every moment, as thin as we are willing to allow it to be in any moment. And in fact, we can, in effect, lift that veil, rend that veil, as Scripture sometimes says, rend the veil that separates us in our own awareness, in our own consciousness, from the spirit world and our human self. I think I remember that Rabbi Jamie talked about that somewhat a couple of weeks ago, and recognizing and honoring how we are both, right? But how we can live more fully in the awareness that, yes, we are in this relative world. We talked about that in one of our classes too, the absolute truth and the relative truth. The absolute of us is spirit. The absolute of us is expression of God. The absolute of us is perfect, whole, complete, love, joy, all those ideas. And sometimes in our relative truth, our relative experience, we're not always living. But our opportunity, I believe, in every moment is to remove as much as possible of that human costume, to remove our limitations, our thoughts about our identity, the costumes we wear, the labels we put on ourselves, and simply live as closely as possible as we can to the awareness that we are spirit. We are divine. We are holy. We are saints. We are the sacred, having a human experience without denying the human experience, but bringing that into demonstration and manifestation right here, right. So maybe as we celebrate Halloween this year, we can think about that. We can think about, what is this costume? What are all of these labels, these costumes that I might be wearing to separate, that just tend to separate me from my truth or cover up my true nature? And am I willing to question that? Am I willing to release some of that? And am I willing to be the one who rends the veil and simply lives from a conscious awareness of my unity in God and with all people? Am I willing to be the one who lets the light shine through? And am I willing, as I do that, to be the one who celebrates the harvest of being that, of planting that seed, of of tending that soil and preparing that soil and celebrating life, celebrating the beauty of it. So there are all different ways to observe this time of year, and there's so many different traditions that we can look to honor and celebrate this season of harvest and change and celebrating life and honoring who we truly are. And so I just invite you uh, into some of that as we move into this week, where we do have Halloween, All Saints Day, and Day of the Dead coming right on the heels of each other. Maybe take some time during each of those days to have your own ceremony or ritual in honor of those processes and those honorings. So anyway, I think that's all I have to say about that today. But I thank you for being here and for listening and for your presence. And so let's just take a moment to go within and breathe once again into this now moment as we open ourselves up more fully and completely to this time of year, of all of the ways that we can honor this time of fall and harvest and light and the saints, those who have gone before, those who are here now present with us. We honor ourselves as expressions of the divine, releasing as much as we can of anything, any thoughts, any beliefs, any labels or identities that might separate us from that awareness, and open ourselves up to knowing that we are spirit, to rending that veil that would tend to separate us from our truth. So as we allow that, as we claim it, as we practice it, and as we choose to be it, we celebrate it and know that it is so. And together let us say, and so it is. And so I want to remind you that since we're not collecting an offering this morning, that we are grateful for the ways that you contribute, and we appreciate how prosperous and abundant we are as a spiritual community. And as I shared last week, we do share our good with organizations around the area and with CSL Home Office every month. So if you would like to give today, you can go to the website. I think that's how we would give, cslparker.org, and there's a link there to make a donation. So I invite you to do that if you would like. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it today. So if you'd like to unmute, if you want to talk, you want to share, you want to ask questions, let's do that. Let's have our own little time of fellowship.
And Reverend David, I also just wanted to say that I like the question that I would have to ask myself, what other costumes am I wearing? I like that question. But I did come across a saying that I kind of like. And the one that I bump into says, this is what it says: uniqueness is more and more consciousness. I thought that was yeah.
Cool. I like that. That's awesome.
I like that. Say also, Reverend David, that I know I'm very grateful to hear your beautiful voice.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Just so good, we are gifted with such a talented ministers as you are, that can actually serenade us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, we're on to November next week, first week of November. We're going to be talking about abundance next month. Our theme is going to be awakened abundance, using the book right here, actually, The Abundance Project by Derek Riddle. So we're going to be using a lot of the themes from that book next month to talk about abundance. What is abundance? And how do we connect with that flow of abundance in our lives? So hope you'll be there next week. Well, much love to you all. Have a beautiful snow day